Toronto was buzzing this week with whispers that no one could quite believe until the shocking truth broke out. Cameras caught none other than Drake, the global rap superstar, slipping quietly into a downtown courthouse, his face hidden under a hood, his entourage unusually tense. But this wasn't the glamorous red carpet entrance fans are used to. No, this was something far more secretive and far more personal. Reports claim the OVO King wasn't there for business or music, but for a closed-door family court hearing, and now speculation is spiraling out of control. What could possibly drag Drake Canada's Golden Boyant to such a private legal battle? Some insiders are whispering about custody disputes. Others hint at long-buried family secrets resurfacing. And still, a few claim there may be a mystery figure from Drake's past demanding answers. Witnesses at the courthouse described emotions running high and heated exchanges behind those locked doors. Security guards were overheard muttering that it was the most intense scene they'd witnessed in years. Fans are left stunned, asking, is Drake hiding a second family, a betrayal, or is this the start of a scandal that could shake his empire to the core? The story begins on a gray morning in Toronto, where a quiet hum had already settled outside the courthouse long before the doors opened. A handful of early risers, photographers, and a few curious fans stood in the drizzle whispering about who they might see. Suddenly, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Tinted windows, bodyguards stepping out first, their faces tense. The crowd barely had time to process what was happening before they saw him. Aubrey Graham, the global superstar everyone knows as Drake, stepping quickly out of the vehicle, pulling his hoodie low, walking fast toward the courthouse entrance. It wasn't the kind of entrance fans expected from a man known for spotlight moments. No flashing smiles, no waves, no red carpet charm. This was quiet. This was heavy. And it sent a ripple of shock through everyone watching. Someone in the crowd gasped, whispering, "That's Drake. What is he doing here?" Another fumbled with their phone, trying to snap a blurry picture. Within minutes, social media was alive with frantic posts. Drake at Toronto courthouse. Family court hearing. What's going on? The speculation was immediate. But what really fueled the drama wasn't just his appearance, it was the way his bodyguards blocked every angle, shielding him like there was something he desperately needed to hide. Witnesses swore his expression looked grim, almost anxious, as if he was carrying the weight of something personal. And then the courthouse doors closed behind him, leaving the crowd to wonder what secret storm was unfolding inside those walls. According to insiders, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Reporters who managed to sneak around corridors said they could hear muffled voices raised in heated tones, though no clear words escaped. One clerk described the mood as explosive, adding that it was rare to see so many high-ranking staff members assigned to just one private hearing. The secrecy only added fuel to the fire. Why would Drake, a man with access to some of the best lawyers in the country, appear in person in such a vulnerable way? Why not send representatives, as celebrities often do? Why risk being spotted, unless the matter at hand was deeply personal? Whispers soon circulated that the hearing was related to a family dispute, something far more intimate than any business contract or music deal. One source claimed the issue involved a custody battle, though they refused to say more. Another hinted that a figure from Drake's past had resurfaced, demanding recognition and stirring emotions that had long been buried. Whatever the truth, everyone inside agreed on one thing: emotions were running dangerously high. Chairs scraped, voices cracked, and there were moments when security had to step closer, anticipating a confrontation that could boil over at any second. Then came the moment that truly shook those in attendance. According to one eyewitness, a woman entered the courtroom shortly after Drake. She was described as tall, composed, and visibly upset, her eyes red as though she had been crying. Whispers ran through the benches. Who was she? Is this an ex-partner? A family member? Someone with claims too powerful to ignore. Drake's reaction, they said, was unmistakable. His head dropped, his hands clenched into fists on the table. And for a brief second, the superstar who always seemed in control looked as if he had been struck by something he could not deflect. As the proceedings went on, fragments of heated dialogue slipped through. One voice, possibly Drake's, was heard saying, "You don't understand. This isn't just about me." Another voice, female, sharper, responded with, "You've ignored this for too long and now you want to pretend." Gasps rippled among those listening in, felt less like a courtroom and more like a family drama unraveling in real time. The kind fans would never imagine seeing from a man whose life often appears picture perfect. The stakes were clearly personal, and the accusations carried a weight that left even the hardened staff unsettled. Meanwhile, outside, the crowd had grown. Word had spread across the city and more fans gathered at the steps, some chanting his name, others simply staring at the courthouse windows as if expecting answers to appear. Reporters rushed to set up cameras, broadcasting live updates, while fans online speculated wildly. Some claimed it was about Drake's known son, Adonis. Others whispered of a secret child, a second family hidden from the world. A few conspiracy theorists even suggested it had nothing to do with children at all, but rather long-buried disputes within his extended family, perhaps involving inheritance, betrayal, or old grudges finally coming to light. Whatever the truth, the buzz had reached fever pitch, and the city was holding its breath. Back inside, the drama only intensified. One source described the mood as betrayal hanging in the air. Drake's lawyers exchanged sharp words with the opposing side, and papers were slammed onto the table in frustration. At one point, Drake reportedly stood up, his voice cracking as he said, "Do you think I wanted it to come to this? You think this is easy for me?" The emotion in his tone was raw, unlike the smooth, carefully measured voice fans hear in interviews. It was the sound of a man cornered, forced to confront something he could no longer escape. And for the people inside that room, it was clear. This wasn't just legal business. This was family breaking apart in moments of silence. Between the heated exchanges, one could almost feel the gravity of what was at stake. Every sigh, every glance, every shuffle of papers seemed amplified. One witness later said, "It felt like we were watching history, like a chapter in Drake's life that nobody was ever supposed to see." Even the judge, usually composed and stern, was reportedly caught looking weary, her eyes betraying the weight of the drama she was presiding over. The room wasn't just filled with legalities, it was filled with decades of emotion, resentment, and the kind of wounds that money and fame can never truly heal outside the courtroom. Drake's team tried to maintain control. One member of his entourage was overheard snapping at a reporter, "Back off. You don't know what you're talking about." Another paced nervously by the door, constantly checking his phone, as if coordinating damage control for the inevitable media explosion. The tension spilled out into the hallways, creating an atmosphere where even bystanders felt nervous too, breathed too loudly. For those who had come expecting a quick, uneventful appearance, it had become clear that they were witnessing something far more explosive. This was no simple matrit, was the unraveling of secrets, the clashing of loyalties, and the kind of personal storm that could change everything for Drake's carefully curated public image. And just when it seemed the hearing might calm down, another shocking twist unfolded. Sources say an unexpected voice spoke up, someone seated quietly in the back until that moment. The figure was described as younger, nervous, but determined. And when they stood, all eyes in the courtroom shifted. Their words were not fully audible, but the tone carried enough weight to silence the room. Even Drake froze, his body going rigid as if those words struck him deeper than anything else that day. Whispers suggest this figure may have been connected to the dispute in a way no one anticipated, a presence that could shift the entire case in a new direction. It was the cliffhanger moment that left everyone stunned, the point where speculation turned into full-blown chaos as the first session of the hearing drew to a close. The atmosphere outside was electric. Reporters were already crafting headlines, fans were screaming into live streams, and social media was on fire. Everyone was desperate to know what Drake was hiding, what secrets were being torn open inside those walls. But the only certainty was this: the story was far from over. Whatever had begun that morning was only the beginning of a saga that promised betrayal, revelations, and consequences no one could have imagined. And as Drake stepped out of the courtroom, his hood pulled tight, his eyes refusing to meet the flashing cameras, it was clear the world had only seen the surface of a storm that was about to get even darker. As Drake exited the courtroom after that first explosive session, the energy in the air was almost unbearable. The crowd outside surged forward, phones flashing, voices screaming. What happened in there? Is it true about the custody fight? Drake, say something. But he kept his head down, slipping quickly back into the black SUV, his entourage forming a human wall between him and the chaos. Still, for those who caught a glimpse of his face, the expression was undeniable. He wasn't just frustrated, he looked shaken, like a man who had been forced to confront a truth he'd spent years burying. One fan live streaming outside whispered breathlessly, "He looked broken." Like something really serious went down. In there, inside the courthouse, whispers and rumors spread like wildfire. The mysterious younger figure who had stood up at the very end of the session became the center of every conversation. Who were they? What did they say that silenced the entire room, even Drake himself? One source swore the person had introduced themselves as someone with a direct connection to Drake's past, someone who claimed to be family. The word family echoed through the halls, sending shivers down spines. Suddenly, theories erupted. Was this an estranged sibling, cousin, or even worse, a child that Drake had never publicly acknowledged? The possibilities were endless, and each one was more shocking than the last. By the afternoon, Toronto's entertainment circles were ablaze. Journalists were calling it the most dramatic courtroom scene the city had seen in years. One insider claimed that Drake's legal team looked blindsided by the young person's presence, flipping through their files with panic, as if they hadn't anticipated this twist at all. You could tell Drake was thrown, the source said. He sat back in his chair, staring at the floor like he couldn't even process what was happening. Those words only deepened the speculation. For a man who has built an empire on control of his image, his career, his music hit was a rare glimpse of him off balance. And fans around the world were hooked. The second day of the hearing arrived, with even more intensity. Outside, the courthouse was swarming with reporters, bloggers, and curious fans. The buzz had spread internationally, with media outlets from the UA, the UK, and even Japan sending correspondents to cover what was now being dubbed the Drake family trial. Signs appeared in the crowd, some supportive reading "Stay Strong, Drizzy," and others taunting, "What are you hiding?" It was chaos, and yet the man at the center of it all remained silent, refusing to release a statement. That silence only fueled the drama. When Drake arrived for day 2, the mood was darker. Gone was the hoodie. It's time he wore a sharp suit, though his eyes betrayed exhaustion. Fans said he looked like a man preparing for battle, shoulders squared, jaw tight. But the real shock came when the mysterious young figure from the first day appeared again, escorted by a woman many insiders now claimed was their mother. The crowd gasped. Whispers shot through the line. They look like him, don't they? The resemblance is there. Inside the courtroom, emotions exploded almost immediately. Reports say Drake's team demanded to know why this individual was allowed to speak, while the opposing lawyers insisted they had every right to be heard. The judge silenced the chaos, ordering everyone to sit, but the tension was unshakable. Then came the words that broke the entire case open. The young figure reportedly said, "I've been quiet my whole life, but I can't stay quiet anymore. I deserve the truth." The room froze. Witnesses described Drake's face draining of color, his hands gripping the table until his knuckles turned white. The words carried more weight than any accusation because they hinted at something far more scandalous, a truth that had been hidden, possibly for years. One insider claimed Drake whispered under his breath, "This isn't the place for this." But the young person shot back, "You had years to make it right. You chose to keep me invisible." Gasps filled the courtroom. It felt like a reality show gone live, every word echoing like a bombshell confession. Suddenly, the speculation of a secret family didn't feel so far-fetched. The woman accompanying the young figure then stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "You think you can hide behind fame and lawyers," she said, "but you can't erase people's lives. You can't erase your blood." Witnesses swore Drake looked as if he wanted to respond, but his lawyers quickly leaned in, whispering furiously, pulling him back before he could speak further. It was chaos, the kind of explosive moment that had reporters scrambling to type, cameras trying to catch even the smallest gesture, and fans glued to every leaked update. Outside, the internet went wild. Hashtags like #DrakeCourtDrama, #SecretFamily, and #Hidden Bloodline began trending worldwide. Fans argued fiercely, some defending him, insisting it was a setup to drag down his reputation. Others convinced this was the scandal that would finally expose the truth. One viral tweet read, "If this turns out to be real, Drake's whole legacy changes overnight." Another countered, "Y'all acting like celebrities don't get lied on every day? Stop believing random gossip." But the debates only made the story hotter, and as always, the mystery kept pulling everyone deeper. Back in court, the exchanges grew more heated. Drake reportedly slammed his hand on the table at one point, his voice breaking as he said, "You don't know the whole story. None of you do." It was raw, emotional, and unlike the polished artist the world was used to seeing. The woman fired back, "Then tell it. Tell the truth, Drake. Tell them why we're here." The judge had to call for order multiple times, banging the gavel, but the emotions were impossible to contain. It was less a legal proceeding now and more a family eruption, with accusations flying and secrets clawing their way to the surface. And just when it seemed like the drama had reached its peak, another unexpected twist rocked the room. According to whispers, Drake's own mother, Sandy Graham, was spotted entering the courthouse during a recess. She had been absent the first day, but her sudden arrival only heightened the stakes. Those who saw her described her as solemn, almost devastated, her usual warmth replaced by something more fragile. When she walked past the cameras, refusing to answer questions, it only confirmed for fans that this wasn't just tabloid gossip. This was real family business. The second half of the session that day was quieter, but the silence felt even heavier. With Sandy present, Drake appeared more subdued, speaking less, staring at the floor more often. Insiders claimed there were moments where mother and son exchanged glances that spoke volumes, glances of disappointment, sadness, and unspoken words that years of fame had never erased. One court clerk whispered afterward, "It was like watching a family implode. Everyone in that room knew something big had been covered up, and now it was unraveling in front of us." When the day finally ended, Drake left quickly again. But this time the mysterious young figure lingered outside the courthouse. Cameras caught them standing on the steps, looking directly at reporters, though they said nothing. Fans online immediately compared photos side by side, insisting the resemblance to Drake was undeniable. Others speculated the silence was a calculated move to keep the suspense high. Either way, the world was hooked that night. News outlets replayed the footage on a loop. Talk shows dissected every glance, every word, every gesture. One commentator declared, "This isn't just celebrity gossip, this is a turning point in Drake's career." Another argued, "Until we know the facts, it's all speculation." But what's clear is that emotions are running high, and Drake is at the center of a family storm that shows no signs of slowing down. And as Toronto braced itself for day 3 of the hearing, one question lingered heavier than all the others. Who exactly was the young person claiming to be tied to Drake's bloodline? And what truth had they come to reveal? The answer? Everyone knew was coming, but the cost of that answer might be higher than anyone could imagine. Day 3 dawned over Toronto with an almost cinematic weight. The courthouse, now surrounded by barricades, felt less like a government building and more like the set of a blockbuster finale. News vans lined the streets, fans camped overnight to secure spots near the entrance, and online speculation had reached fever pitch. Everyone wanted answers. Who was the young figure? What was their connection to Drake? And most importantly, what truth were they about to force into the light? When Drake arrived that morning, his demeanor was different. Gone was the sharp suit from the previous day. Instead, he wore a simple dark sweater, his face drawn, his eyes heavy as if he hadn't slept. Whispers among those close to the scene suggested he had spent the night in tense conversations with his mother, Sandy, who had entered the courthouse the day before. One source claimed the two were heard arguing in low but emotional voices. As they left the building, Sandy telling him, "You can't keep running from this. Not anymore." It was the kind of motherly tone that hit harder than any lawyer's words, and by the look on Drake's face now, it seemed her message had landed. The young figure whose presence had ignited the scandal was already inside. Seated with their mother, the air in the courtroom was thick, buzzing with anticipation. Every seat was filled, every hallway lined with staff and spectators craning their necks for even a glimpse. As the session began, the judge wasted no time, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "The court will now hear the testimony," she said firmly. And the room fell into a suffocating silence. What followed was described as one of the most gut-wrenching moments anyone there had ever witnessed. The young person, voice shaking at first, spoke directly to Drake. "For years, I watched from the sidelines," they said. "I knew who you were. I saw your face everywhere. You were celebrated, loved, worshipped. And yet, to me, you were just a ghost. A shadow? Someone who pretended I didn't exist." Gasps filled the room. Some clutched their chests, others leaned forward in disbelief. The pain in their voice cut through the courtroom like a knife. Every word heavy with the weight of years. Drake's single quote's eyes welled up, and for the first time, he looked directly at them. "It wasn't like that," he murmured, his voice barely audible. But the young person pressed on. "Then explain. Explain why I had to grow up hearing your songs on the radio, seeing your face on TV, while you couldn't even look me in the..." The room was silent except for the sound of their trembling voice. Even Drake's lawyers seemed frozen, as if unsure how to proceed. Finally, the woman who had accompanied the young figure stepped forward again. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed years of pain. "You had choices, Aubrey," she said, "and you chose silence. You chose fame over family." The accusation hung heavy in the air. Drake leaned forward, his hands covering his face, visibly breaking under the weight of the moment. Whispers swirled around the courtroom, speculation, morphing into conviction. Was this the revelation the world had been waiting for? Had Drake, the man who often rapped about loyalty and love, hidden a child or perhaps a sibling from the world all along? The judge finally interjected, demanding order, but the emotion could not be contained. Drake finally lifted his head, his voice cracking as he said, "You don't understand what it was like. I was trying to protect everyone. I thought I was doing the right thing." His words sparked murmurs throughout the room. Protect from what? What danger could have justified such a secret? The young person's reply was devastating. You weren't protecting us, you were protecting yourself. Fans following the live updates online lost their minds. Twitter threads exploded. YouTube commentary videos went up within hours, and even celebrities began weighing in. One well-known artist tweeted, "If this is true, it changes everything we thought we knew." Another wrote, "Family drama is real, even for legends." The narrative had transcended gossip. It was now a full-blown cultural moment. Back in court, Drake's mother, Sandy, finally spoke, her voice fragile yet firm. "Aubrey," she said softly, "you can't carry this lie forever. It's time." Everyone in the room froze, realizing her words weren't just maternal, they were confirmation. Confirmation that something had indeed been buried, hidden beneath years of fame and image. Drake turned to her, eyes pleading, but she shook her head slowly, as though to say the charade had gone on long enough. In that moment, reports say Drake broke down completely. His composure shattered. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "I didn't know how to face it. I didn't know how to face you." The vulnerability was shocking. For a man often seen as untouchable, larger than life, this was raw, human, and painfully real. The courtroom sat in stunned silence, the weight of the revelation pressing down on every soul inside. Yet just when it seemed like the truth was finally spilling out, another dramatic twist shifted the entire energy of the room. The young figure revealed a small folder, pulling out papers and photographs, slamming them onto the table in front of the judge. "If he won't admit it, then I will show it," they declared. Gasps erupted once again. Insiders later claimed the documents contained undeniable evidence, birth records, correspondence, proof that could link them directly to Drake's bloodline. The details were not immediately disclosed, but witnesses swore the look on Drake's face said it all. He knew. He had always known. The judge called for a recess, her voice tight with tension, but the damage was already done. Outside the courtroom, chaos erupted. Reporters shouted over one another, fans sobbed or screamed into their phones, and the internet nearly broke under the weight of speculation. "This is bigger than any album drop," one fan joked online. "This is like a live soap opera." During the break, Drake remained inside, reportedly having a heated conversation with his lawyers. Sources said his voice could be heard echoing down the hall, words like "ruined" and "never wanted this leaking out." Meanwhile, the young figure and their mother sat quietly, their expressions unreadable, though some said there was a mix of exhaustion and relief on their faces, as if years of silence had finally given way to a painful but necessary truth. As the recess ended and everyone filed back into the courtroom, the energy was electric. This was no longer just a family dispute, was a reckoning. Fans outside chanted louder, reporters screamed into cameras, and Toronto became the center of a global storm. Inside, the judge announced that the testimony and evidence would be formally reviewed in the next session. But the atmosphere suggested that the truth was already undeniable. Drake sat back in his chair, silent now, his hands folded tightly as though clinging to some last shred of control. The young person stared at him, their gaze unwavering, filled with years of longing, pain, and demand for acknowledgement. And though no words were spoken in those final moments of the day, the silence itself was deafening. As everyone left the courthouse, the narrative was already set in stone. Drake, the superstar, the icon, was now at the center of the most explosive family scandal of the decade. Fans were divided, the industry was watching, and the world was waiting for the next revelation. Because if the documents were real and the testimony was true, then Drake's carefully crafted empire was about to face its biggest test yet. And as night fell over Toronto, the courthouse standing like a fortress of secrets, one truth was clear: the story wasn't over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Day 4 of the hearing arrived like a storm waiting to break. The courthouse steps were overflowing, fans waving signs, paparazzi pushing against barricades, reporters shouting into cameras as if they were announcing the end of the world. Overnight, the documents revealed by the mysterious young figure had spread across every social media platform. Blurry screenshots, leaked snippets, and unverified claims flooded timelines. Millions believed they had the proof they needed, while millions more clung to hope that it was all a cruel fabrication. But one thing was certain: when Drake walked into that courtroom again, he was no longer just a superstar. He was a man on trial in the court of public opinion. He arrived late, his entourage surrounding him like a shield. Oh, no hoodie this time. No attempt to hide his face. Its expression was stark, almost defiant, though beneath the surface there was something else: resignation. Fans outside screamed his name, some cheering, others booing, their voices blending into a chaotic symphony that followed him into the building. As he entered the courtroom, all eyes locked on him, waiting to see how he would respond to the mountain of accusations and evidence that had piled against him. The young figure and their mother were already seated, calm but unyielding. Their presence alone was enough to command attention, but today it was clear they were not backing down. When the session began, the judge's voice carried over the room like a warning bell. This court will proceed with the presentation of evidence. Emotions must be controlled. But let me remind everyone, this is about truth, not spectacle. And yet the irony hung heavy. This wasn't just a court hearing anymore. It was the biggest spectacle in the world. The documents were formally introduced. Reports claimed they included birth certificates, photographs spanning years, and even letters, private letters allegedly written by Drake himself. As the clerk read through them, the room erupted with gasps. One letter in particular, though, its exact contents remained sealed to the public, was said to reveal Drake's awareness of the situation years ago. "You always knew," the mother said bitterly across the room, her voice trembling. "You always knew, and you stayed silent." Drake, visibly shaking now, finally broke his silence. "I didn't deny you because I didn't care," he said, his voice cracking. "I denied you because I was scared. Scared of losing everything. Scared of the world tearing us apart." His words hung heavy, a rare confession from a man who rarely lets the world see past the polished exterior. But the young figure responded coldly. "You lost us long before the world ever could." The tension was unbearable. One court staffer later said it didn't feel like a hearing anymore. It felt like a family ripping itself apart, and everyone was forced to watch. Fans online described the updates as painful to read, and like watching your idol crumble in real time. Every moment was magnified, dissected, and broadcast to the world as the testimonies continued. Betrayal after betrayal unfolded. One shocking revelation was that close members of Drake's circle allegedly knew about the situation for years. Insiders whispered that some of his closest friends had begged him to come clean, fearing the truth would one day explode. But instead, the silence grew, and with it, the resentment. "You let us carry this in the dark," the mother said through tears. "While you built your empire, we built our pain." Drake's lawyer tried desperately to shift the narrative, arguing that the evidence wasn't conclusive, that the accusations were exaggerated, that fame had painted a target on his back, but the mood in the room had already shifted. Fans online weren't buying it. "He looks guilty," one viral post read. "You can't fake that kind of guilt." Another countered, "He's human. He made mistakes. Who wouldn't crumble under this pressure?" The debates raged, dividing fans into camps: those who believed the allegations, and those who insisted it was all an elaborate trap. And then came the ultimate twist, the one nobody expected. During cross-examination, the young figure looked directly at Drake and said, "I don't want your money. I don't want your fame. I just want you to acknowledge me." The simplicity of the demand sent shockwaves through the room. This wasn't about fortune or legal victories. It was about recognition, about identity, about family. Drake's reaction was immediate. His face crumpled, his body shook, and for the first time in the entire ordeal, he whispered the words everyone had been waiting for. "You're right. I can't hide anymore. I see you." Tears streamed down the young person's face. The courtroom, for a moment, was utterly silent. It wasn't victory, it wasn't defeat. It was raw, devastating humanity playing out in real time. Outside, the world exploded. Live blogs updated with headlines like "Drake admits truth in shocking courtroom confession" and "Tears and chaos as Drake faces family reckoning." Fans posted reaction videos, some sobbing, others enraged. All of them united by the fact that they couldn't look away. "This is the biggest reality show on earth right now," one commentator said, but just as quickly as the confession came, the aftermath grew complicated. Drake's team scrambled to regain control, issuing a vague statement to reporters. "This is a deeply personal matter. Drake will be making a full comment in due time." The statement only fanned the flames. What did it mean? Was the acknowledgement genuine? Was it a strategic move to stop the bleeding? Back inside, Drake's mother, Sandy, reached across the aisle. Witnesses said she touched the young person's hand, whispering something that brought both of them to tears. The gesture confirmed for many what they already suspected: this wasn't fabrication. This was blood, and no amount of lawyers or silence could undo it. The session ended in chaos. Drake exited the building slowly, this time not hiding from the cameras. His face was wet with tears, his posture slouched, a man visibly crushed under the weight of truth. The crowd outside screamed his name, some in support, others in anger. One fan shouted, "We still love you," while another yelled, "How could you lie to us?" It was a scene of division, a reflection of how deeply this revelation had cut into the fabric of his image. That night, social media became a battlefield. Memes exploded, think pieces flooded timelines, and celebrities chimed in with cryptic posts. One rapper tweeted, "Truth always finds its way out." Another wrote, "Protect your peace even if it means losing everything." Fans debated whether Drake's career would survive, whether his music would now be viewed through a lens of betrayal and secrecy, or whether his honesty in the end might redeem him. But the story didn't end there. Whispers began circulating that the young person wasn't finished, that there were more revelations to come, more layers to peel back. Insiders hinted that additional hearings were already scheduled, that this saga was far from over. The sense of suspense was unbearable. It was as though the entire world had been left on a cliffhanger, waiting for the next explosive chapter. As the courthouse emptied and the night grew quiet, one truth remained clear. Drake's carefully protected world had been shattered, and nothing would ever be the same again. Fans were left stunned. Family ties were fractured, and the industry itself was shaken. The golden boy of Toronto, the superstar who seemed untouchable, had been dragged into the rawest, most human drama of all family betrayal and the desperate need for acknowledgement. And though the hearing ended with no final verdict, the emotional verdict was already clear. The family was divided, the fans were divided, and Drake himself stood at the center, broken but exposed. And as the world watched with bated breath, one question echoed louder than all the rest. What is Drake hiding still? And how much darker will the truth become? As the doors of the courthouse finally closed on this chapter, the world was left, spinning with more questions than answers. Was this the end of Drake's carefully built image, or the beginning of a new truth he could no longer hide? Fans are torn, the industry is buzzing, and Toronto itself feels like the backdrop to a real-life drama that nobody saw coming. The tears, the accusations, the confessions every moment has left scars that won't fade overnight. And yet the biggest question remains, what happens next? Will Drake finally step forward and share his side of the story in his own words? Or will silence and speculation continue to define the narrative? Will the young figure who stood up so bravely in that courtroom find the acknowledgement they fought for, or will the battle drag on behind closed doors? One thing is certain, the world will be watching every step of the way. Fans are already split down the middle. Some say they will never look at Drake the same way again, while others insist that family drama doesn't erase the music, the legacy, or the connection he has built with millions. But where do you stand? What do you believe really happened in that Toronto courthouse? And what do you think Drake is still hiding? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know if you think this revelation will change Drake's career forever, or if it's just another stormy will weather. Don't forget to like this video if you've been following every twist of the drama. And hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next explosive update. Because in this story, the secrets aren't finished and the truth is only getting darker.